On this Sunday night, the U.S. urges civilian protection in Gaza. President Biden's warning to Israel about invading the crowded Rafah region. As a pregnant Palestinian woman in Gaza eyes Canada for a safe birth. Communities cut off.
And we're not even going to a lot of the reserves that we would be at this time of year.
The winter road issues prompting some First Nations to declare a state of emergency. Crucial for consumer acceptance.
The industry has to really look at this very seriously.
The unlikely secret ingredient that could soon make its way into plant-based meats. And Super Bowl showdown, a look at the football fanfare in Las Vegas.
Global National with Farah Nasser. Reporting tonight, Nitu Garcha.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin with breaking news tonight. A man has been arrested for the suspicious deaths of 5 people, including 3 children in southern Manitoba. A warning, the details are disturbing.
And officers from Stonewall, Headingley and Carmen detachments are currently investigating the suspicious deaths of 5 people at 3 different scenes. It is believed that the adult male in custody and all 5 deceased individuals are known to each other.
The RCMP says it was alerted to a hit and run at a highway near Carmen this morning and found an adult female's body in a ditch. Police responded to another scene, finding a vehicle on fire. A witness pulled 3 children out of the vehicle, but they did not survive. The 29-year-old suspect was arrested there. The body of another woman was later found at a residence. Turning to Gaza now, there are deep concerns tonight from the U.S. over Israel's planned invasion of Rafah. U.S. President Joe Biden spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today, urging him not to go ahead without a credible plan to protect civilians. Rafah is the last refuge for Palestinians fleeing Israel's relentless bombardment. According to the UN, more than 1 million people are crammed into its sprawling tent camps, hemmed in by the border with Egypt. Egypt is threatening to suspend its peace treaty with Israel if troops storm the city. But despite major fears of a humanitarian catastrophe, a defiant Netanyahu says he's going to do it. A ground operation in Rafah could cut off the region's main supply route for badly needed food, water, and medical supplies. And one young couple in the southern border city is particularly anxious about Israel's next move. The couple is expecting its second child next week and is desperate for adequate medical care. As David Akin reports, the parents are pinning their hopes on Canada to find them a safe place to give birth.
As the rain comes down in Rafah, refugees find shelter among tents made of plastic sheets. And here, steps from the border with Egypt, Lama and Nadal Zakut seek safety. Lama, 22 years old, is due to give birth next week to the couple's second child, a birth that will have to be by C-section. I am filled with fear of the state I will be in later on, she says. When the war started, the couple lived in the north of Gaza. Nadal worked as a nurse at Al-Shifa Hospital. Where will I go next, Nadal says. There is no hospital left suitable for my wife's delivery.
My sister-in-law, Lama Zakut, she's 39 weeks pregnant. She is scheduled to give birth via C-section on the 14th of February. We have no idea how's the health of the baby.
That's Nadal's sister, Rasha Zakut. She's a Canadian citizen living in Montreal, and she applied 6 weeks ago for a temporary resident visa to bring the couple to Canada.
I urge the Canadian government and the Minister of Immigration to take an immediate action to evacuate Lama Zakut.
A spokesperson for Immigration Minister Mark Miller said that while unable to comment on specific cases, Canada is processing applications from Canadians who, like Rasha, have family members in Gaza, but that right now it is difficult, if not impossible, to get them out of Gaza. Lama and Nadal are among 1.4 million refugees that the UN believes is now swelling Rafah at the closed Egyptian border, and many are nervous about Israel's next move.
They can't just disappear.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, in an interview on ABC's This Week, vowed to attack Hamas units in Rafah, but somehow evacuate civilians ahead of the assault.
We're going to get the remaining Hamas terrorist battalions in Rafah, which is the last bastion, but we're going to do it, and in this I agree with the Americans, we're going to do it while providing safe passage for the civilian population so they can leave.
Netanyahu is saying there's space already cleared by IDF members north of Rafah to move civilians. And if that happens, it will be the 5th time Nadal and Lama have been forced to flee since the war began. They would rather make that 5th move to Canada, but there is no answer from them, Nadal says, and they are our only hope. David Akin, Global News, Ottawa.
The UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees says an estimated 25% of families in Gaza are facing catastrophic hunger. UNRWA says the situation is getting even worse and is accusing Israel of blocking a convoy of food donated by Turkey from entering Gaza. It says that shipment has been sitting for weeks in the Israeli port city of Ashdod. But aid is slowly trickling in. Today, another UN-run agency, the World Health Organization, released video of its staff delivering medical supplies to Gaza's Al-Aqsa hospital for the first time in nearly a month. The head of UNRWA says the organization did not know, nor did it have the capacity to know, what was going on underneath its headquarters in Gaza. The Israeli Defense Forces says it has uncovered Hamas tunnels running under the now evacuated compound in Gaza City. Last month, Israel alleged that some UNRWA staff members were involved in the October 7th attacks, prompting more than a dozen countries, including Canada, to suspend funding to the agency. Redmond Shannon reports.
For almost 75 years, the United Nations Refugee and Works Agency, or UNRWA, has helped displaced Palestinians. Many major donors, including Canada, have suspended new funding to UNRWA after Israeli allegations that 12 of UNRWA's 13,000 Gaza staff were involved in the October 7th attacks. Cutting off aid will hurt many people in terms of health and education, says occupied West Bank resident Daoud Faraj. Fears for the agency's future only increased this weekend.
We were in the UNRWA headquarters, above, on ground. Now we're underneath.
Israeli soldiers took a select group of journalists on a tour of what Israel says are Hamas tunnels that reach beneath UNRWA's evacuated headquarters in Gaza City. The head of UNRWA, Philippe Lazzarini, says the agency did not know what was underground and that before the compound was evacuated last October, concerns about any suspicious ground cavities were reported to Hamas and Israel.
I have been to the UNRWA headquarters in Gaza many, countless times.
Chris Gunnis was UNRWA's chief spokesperson for 12 years.
UNRWA doesn't have some kind of surveillance arm that can do underground surveillance. And the other thing to say is that UNRWA is responsible for neutrality in its own compounds, in its own headquarters, not what goes on underneath them or indeed in the skies above them.
Canada's suspension of aid is pending an UNRWA internal investigation into alleged staff involvement in the October 7th attacks. In January, Ottawa pledged $40 million to other UN agencies in Gaza. On Monday, UNRWA's top boss heads to Brussels to ask European governments to keep aid funding flowing. But the EU itself is split. Some nations have suspended funds, some have maintained payments, and Spain has even increased aid. Another indication of how divisive the conflict can be in the international community. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
In Ukraine, Russia launched a 5-hour drone attack targeting infrastructure in the south. Kyiv says it shot down 40 of 45 Iranian-made drones over 9 regions. One strike sparked a fire and damaged a residential building in Mykolaiv, injuring at least one person. And in an attempt to bolster his defense, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky made more changes to his war cabinet today, including announcing a new commander of Ukraine's ground forces. More controversy from Republican presidential frontrunner Donald Trump last night, this time over the security of NATO if he's reelected while campaigning in South Carolina. Trump suggested he would not defend NATO allies who are behind on their defense spending, even against a theoretical Russian invasion.
I said, "You didn't pay? You're delinquent?" He said, "Yes, let's say that happened. No, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. You got to pay."
The former U.S. president was recalling a conversation he claims to have had with a world leader at a NATO meeting. In a statement, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg responded to Trump's remarks, saying any suggestion that allies will not defend each other undermines all of our security. In Finland, voters are picking their next president, and whoever wins will steer the country's foreign and security policy for the Nordic nation, which is also now an official member of NATO. Former Prime Minister Alexander Stubb has taken an early lead over rival and former Foreign Minister Pekka Haavisto. Both have largely agreed on maintaining a hard line towards Moscow, strengthening security ties with Washington, and helping Ukraine after Russia's invasion. In the UK, King Charles made his first public outing since being diagnosed with cancer. The King was seen with his wife Camilla attending church in eastern England, where he has been staying since starting cancer treatment. He stepped back from his public duties in the meantime. Charles issued a statement thanking people for their support and good wishes. Back in Canada, an unseasonably warm winter is causing major issues for an ice road system many remote communities rely on for food, fuel, and supplies. The roads are also vital for accessing health services, but many aren't open yet, prompting First Nations leaders to declare a state of emergency in parts of Manitoba and Ontario. As Melissa Ridgen reports, the changing climate is driving up worries about the future of what is a transportation lifeline.
This is not what an ice road should look like at this time of year. Mild El Nino conditions making winter roads impassable. First Nations leaders from Manitoba's Interlake region declared a state of emergency this week as several communities can no longer access supplies.
The warm weather that has led to the rapid deterioration of the newly constructed winter road that provides the vital road transport access to the isolated communities in the region during our winter months.
Some communities now have less than a week of fuel left.
I don't know what we're going to do once we run out.
Anishinaabe Aski Nation in northern Ontario sounded the alarm too. Of the 30 or so ice roads in the region, only one is open to freight shipments. Construction of 20 roads has been delayed by warm weather, and 10 are open only to passenger vehicles. These road networks are built over land, but also creeks, bogs, rivers, and lakes, and all need more than 40 centimeters of ice for these trucks. Andrew Artemchuk hauls construction and building equipment to several Manitoba First Nations. He says if it doesn't happen, communities will be forced to fly in supplies at a cost up to 5 times more.
And there's things you can't fly in, right? Certain items are too large to fit into a plane. Trusses, for example.
Some fear this winter's challenges could soon become normal.
In more southern parts of the country, including the provinces of Manitoba and Ontario, it may not be possible to even construct them at all for any short period of time.
It has reopened the conversation of constructing all-season roads to many communities.
Is that even feasible for a lot of these places?
Oh, I'm sure with enough money you can do anything, right?
And would likely see First Nations looking to provinces and Ottawa to foot that hefty bill. Melissa Ridgen, Global News, Winnipeg.
The precarious plight of the North Atlantic right whale. Coming up, a young one entangled off the coast of New Brunswick meets a heartbreaking end. The death of a young North Atlantic right whale, first spotted entangled by rope off the coast of New Brunswick 2 years ago, is highlighting the precarious position of the species. The loss of a female that could have helped bolster the species is sobering for conservationists. Heidi Petracek on how the loss has shaken those trying to save the whales.
It's hard to understand what this animal had to have gone through.
Marine mammal veterinarian Sarah Sharp says this case was particularly difficult for her. North Atlantic right whale number 5120 was young, 3 years old, and the female was entangled for several years.
She spent more than half of her life with this entanglement around the base of her tail.
The whale had first been spotted off the coast of New Brunswick in August 2022, caught up in buoys and rope. Then seen again in January of 2023 in Cape Cod Bay, still entangled, before being found in waters dead off the coast of Martha's Vineyard January 28th of this year. Efforts to get the rope off had failed.
And to lose an animal so young, this population really can't afford to lose these females. There's really only 70 adult females left.
That's out of a total population of 350. This is calving season, but experts say the whales aren't reproducing enough to make up for their deaths.
The caveat here is that we're only thinking we're seeing about 1/3 of all deaths. So a lot of animals disappear, particularly young animals, without us ever knowing what happened to them.
After 12 whales died in 2017, Ottawa set speed limits for part of the Gulf of St. Lawrence and Cabot Strait at certain times of the year to prevent collisions. Marine ecologist Boris Worm says now is the time for jurisdictions to adopt ropeless fishing gear and other measures to prevent entanglements.
It's crazy to me that we can land on the moon, we can send rovers to Mars and all that, and we can't keep those whales safe.
I do feel like there's more we can do, and we need to do better by these whales.
And this death, she says, may not be the only one. Scientists tracking a severely injured whale calf now. Sharp doesn't think will survive. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
Ahead, taking fake meat to a new level. Why plant-based alternatives may no longer be animal-free. Meat alternatives have been on grocery store shelves for a few years now, and while many Canadians have tried them, not everyone sticks with them. Those who agree say those products could offer environmental benefits, and some Canadians think they have a way to make the products tastier. As Nathaniel Dove reports, some say the solution goes back to animals.
There's nothing quite like it, which might be the problem. Meat alternatives don't hurt animals and typically use fewer resources. Advocates pitch them as a more ethical, sustainable way to feed the world's population. But while the plant-based food market is growing, not all products are seeing the same kind of uptake, and it can be hard to replace the taste of meat. A Montreal startup thinks it has the solution: adding animal fat.
You don't see the same juiciness, the same old beautiful feeling that we have evolved thousands of years to enjoy.
The company Genuine Taste stresses its fat doesn't come from an animal that's died. It's grown in a lab from cells taken from a living cow.
Exactly the same fat without harming animal.
Puya Mamagani says it can renew wider interest in plant-based meat. An industry expert isn't so sure.
The cost of things is really the driver here. And I cannot see a large-scale adoption of these products until they come to scale.
With animal-sourced cells, it may not be for all vegetarians, and definitely not for vegans. Marangoni says they're competing for meat eaters' plates and wallets. Meat alternatives are usually more expensive.
We're at the stage where the industry has to really look at this very seriously and work towards making it a more natural product, less expensive, or at least a par with meat.
Health Canada hasn't approved any cultivated fat products yet. The U.S. approved cultivated chicken last year, but not cultivated fat. With climate change and a growing population, Marangoni says lab-grown food that appeals to more people could, one day, be part of the answer. Nathaniel Dove, Global News.
Next, fans catch Super Bowl fever in Las Vegas. When facing a medical crisis, patients usually expect to be transported to the nearest and most accessible hospital. But that wasn't the case for Saskatchewan woman Maureen McBratney, who suffered kidney failure. Despite living just 20 minutes away from a hospital in the city of Flin Flon in neighboring Manitoba, red tape forced her to get treatment around 6 hours away in Saskatoon. But as Easton Ham reports, she is finally getting the news she's been waiting for.
And I was literally sitting right here when I got the call. And not a word of a lie, it took about 15 minutes before I could speak.
Maureen and Greg McBratney are getting ready to go home after 8 months, 600 kilometers away in Saskatoon.
We have missed so many firsts in our only grandchild's life. His first day of kindergarten, his first Halloween parade.
Maureen went into kidney failure in June, and now she needs dialysis treatments 3 times a week. But because she lives in Saskatchewan, she was told she could not get those treatments at the Flin Flon, Manitoba hospital, 20 minutes from her home in Denair Beach. In September, Shared Health Manitoba told Global News current regulations, including professional licensing restrictions for staff, govern how and when provincial health care can be delivered, adding there were efforts underway exploring collaborations between the provinces.
I don't think anyone thought it was going to take this long to make such a change that everyone knew needed to happen. And I think that's the greatest thing, is that it's not stopping. They're keeping this work going. And
in November, one space was opened for dialysis treatment in Flin Flon for a Saskatchewan resident, but it was not Maureen. Now another space is being added. That spot is hers.
But we're not stopping. We are going to go home and we are going to make health care in our area better for everyone.
And on top of advocating for better health care, also being reunited with their grandson, Fox.
Mama's coming home. Yeah, and what? Are you excited? Yeah. So excited.
To top it all off, after 8 long months, Maureen's first treatment in the Flin Flon General Hospital is on a special day, February 26th.
The 26th of February, which is my birthday. Couldn't have asked for a better gift.
Easton Ham, Global News.
There is nothing but energy and excitement in Sin City tonight. Football fans and certain celebrities from all over have converged on Las Vegas for Super Bowl 58 in what's expected to be the most watched NFL game ever. This year's matchup is between the San Francisco 49ers and the Kansas City Chiefs. It's a highly anticipated rematch of the 2020 edition when the Chiefs won despite trailing most of the game. And in case you're wondering, yes, Taylor Swift is in Vegas to cheer on star Chiefs player and boyfriend Travis Kelce. And that is Global National for this Sunday night. I'm Neetu Garcha. While the Year of the Wood Dragon officially began Saturday, Lunar New Year celebrations are still out in full force. We leave you tonight with more festivities from around the world, from traditional dragon dances and drum performances to dazzling firework displays. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.